There we go. Well, a very good morning, one and all. Thank you very much for joining at late notice on a Sunday. Kareen, that is one hell of a training morning you've had, and I know, Carl, you've been full gas all morning with the Burrito Titans. Keith, glad you're joining me on the out. Nice to see you, sir. Marco, hope all good. Are you coming along too? Russell, thank you very much. I really appreciate you saying that, sir. Very kind of you. And Pierre Alain, very good morning to you. Yes, today the backpedalers are all at Porlock enjoying Porlock Hill, which is proper emotional. There's no way I could get up that at the moment with my back. And then the toll road, which I would certainly be able to do. But wearing today the Burrito Titans llama top, because it is rather splendid, I think. Morning, Kevin. How are you today, sir? You're right, Paul. Good to see you. Too kind. Too kind. Let me just adjust my camera a second. It's not quite in the middle there, is it? I think that's about right now. Right. More or less golf. Are you going to be joining me on the Alpe today? Innsbruck. Yeah, that was proper emotional, wasn't it? You're right, Neil. Yeah, the back support is off. It's not officially off, but I've started to practice riding without it on because I'm in a fixed position and keeping the back straight and not twisting the torso. Waiting to hear from the consultant. I had a meeting on Friday. Good news and sort of mixed news in that the C3's healed well, the spine is straight, the spinal canal has very nice even width and is capacious, to quote the consultant. But I just want to make sure with a second opinion that the T8 vertebrae, which still looks a little bit misshapen to say the least, is okay for me to proceed in life without the exoskeleton. Hey Stuart, how's it going? You alright? Right, I better get to the event, hadn't I? Let's not forget to get to the event. So there is an objective today, and that is to climb the Alpe at 4 watts a kilogram. Now, sorry, just 1 second, just getting my Wahoo bolt on indoors. I keep forgetting to set it to indoors. Hey Alison, very good morning to you. Hope you're well. So, I am hoping to climb the Alpe at 4 watts a kilogram. Now, unfortunately this morning I weighed in at my heaviest for some time because my daughter's going to university today and I was meant to be going down there with her and Jane driving. I'm still not allowed to drive. But she brought back so much stuff. When we tried to get it in the car, there was no room for me. Hence, you lumbered with me on a live stream. So, yesterday I climbed Von 2 at about an average of 3.7 watts a kilogram. And I wonder, when is it possible? Is it just about possible to average 4 watts a kilogram here? We'll see. Morning, found. I haven't dragged the kicker bike into the room yet. I still don't have the strength to do it. It's quite irritating looking at it there in the front room. It looks at me, I look at it, and I can't ride it. Morning, Paul. Oh, very nice, sir. Thank you very much for joining. Oh, sorry. Just reading the whole thing. You've joined. Oh, my injury club. Oh my God. RTA. Oh dear. Is your back okay? So I thought you were talking about joining back pedal. Oh my word, sir. Let us know what the prognosis is. I hope it's okay. Morning, Jono. Well, Australia. It's a big day, or it's a big week in Australia, isn't it? Hope you're going to enjoy watching the racing at a civilised time. Yes, I have to wait for the DVLA to say whether I can drive or not. yeah, unbelievable. I mean, I agree. It's otherworldly what they can do, and just massive respect to them all. Let us know how you're feeling, Paul, in terms of the whiplash, neck, back and shoulders. Is it just whiplash on the neck, back and shoulders that will recover without operating, or is it fractures? Yeah, so hoping... Morning Steve, you alright? Another Australian, enjoying the World Championships. Had a civilised time. You're right, Nick, how's it going, sir? You're right. One big ride with you and David. He's still recovering from it, I understand. So I'm aiming for 4 watts a kilogram. Now, because we're taking Isabel up to university today, or I was meant to be, until there wasn't enough room in the car, we had a meal out last night, a big one. And so I woke up this morning weighing 62. So that means 4 watts a kilogram is an average of 248. Now obviously I want to do it on the watt bike Atom Generation 2. I think that's going to be a bit too much, but hoping to do it on the Favera Aciomas, which are about 10 watts higher. Morning, faster. Sub 1 hour, I'm hoping so, sir. Definitely hoping so. How's it going, Tommy? You alright? Yeah, I got to kick a bike then. Yeah, I waited for it to come down in price, and then it came down in price, and then they launched a new one. But I'm sure the old one is just as good as the new one, or nearly as good. Hey Craig, how's it going? You alright? Right, so let me get the Wahoo bolt ready. Yeah, I'm looking alright, I think. I'm feeling a bit better, and certainly it's a lot cooler without the exoskeleton. So I've had a little bump in power, and yesterday I climbed Ventop at about 3.7 watts a kilogram. Now legs are feeling a little tired after that, but I'd like to see if I can get close, maybe even do 4 watts a kilogram on the Alp. So that means 248 watts average. Hoping to do that on the Aciomas. Be a bit of a stretch on the Generation 2. Well, it's not officially come off, but because indoors on the bike I ride in an upright position with the back straight, I'm giving it a go, and it's been okay the last 2 or 3 goes. Waiting to hear from the consultant who's getting a second opinion regarding my T8 vertebrae to see whether or not it can come off. Right, so I'm not going to massively burn all the matches to stay in the front group here. And I think I'm going to go for a negative split. The classic Ed Laverack. To just ramp the power a little bit on the Alp. No, you can set it to that, but for the Wahoo, here's what I've got. Hopefully you can see it. So I'll start a lap at the bottom of the Alp. Thank you very much, Bitcoin accepted here. Do you think Bitcoin will recover in value? That's the question. You're right, Stephen. Hope you've had a nice summer of fishing, sir. Yeah, definitely. I learned that in the laboratory with Adam Isherwood at Oxford, that when we train, whether it's strength or cardiovascular, over time we build fitness, and in part of that it's improving the number of mitochondria in the muscles, and the mitochondria produce energy aerobically from oxygen, and they take about 10 years to disappear. So when you come back to fitness, they're still there and they take a bit of time to fire up, and then they do. And additionally, for cardiovascular exercise, you build capillarization, i.e. the little veins that take blood to the muscles, i.e. oxygen carrying blood. And that capillarization becomes more dense with aerobic activity. And again, it takes some time to fire up, but definitely it's like muscle memory, both of those things. Now I'm on a Watt Bike Atom Generation 2 right now. I can't carry the kicker bike from where they dropped it off in my lounge to the pain cave at Nork and Jane. You alright, Chris? Very good morning to you. Nice one, Marco. Thanks for joining. Hey, Karine. One hell of a karate session this morning. Yeah, it's muscle memory is a real thing, Stuart, and it's why we should all kind of just stay training, even if we're just keeping things ticking over. It helps as we get older, retaining muscle, building mitochondria, improving capillary density. It's also very good cognitively, cardiovascular exercise. Good for the brain. It builds connections between the brain cells. That's called neuroplasticity. And cardiovascular exercise is proven to build, there's Marco, neuroplasticity. So can help reduce the risk of cognitive diseases as we age. Morning, Katie. 6 small races yesterday. That's insane. Oh, Mark, 3 fractures. Are you fully recovered yet, sir? You alright, Ross? Very good morning to you. Well, we're going to America, so I'm going to ride out there. But next week, I'm hoping to go to Switzerland to ride 3 stages very carefully, especially downhill. You alright, Craig? How's your recovery going? Yeah, not officially off. I'll rewind on that in a bit. Yeah, the base is great, Stuart. Try and find where your lactate threshold 1 is. It should be between zone 2 and 3, but try and find the maximum pace you can ride over 90 minutes, then 2 hours at a nice even power without the heart rate going anywhere near the kind of threshold levels. Breathing controlled, feeling easily able to clear lactate from the legs. It's a game changer for base lactate threshold. Well, check out my video. There's a plug. No, Switzerland. It's the hot route, Switzerland. Davos. So on the climb, no, never done BMX. Used to do a little bit of, well, I had a bike when I was younger. It was a mountain bike, but never did mountain biking. But used to cycle a lot up until the age of about 15. Have you done BMX, Stephen? Sounds like you may have done, sir. I was a very bad skateboarder, if that's close. So, I might not be able to talk a great deal on the climb. Because this will be my max. At the peak, it was 4.7. For a lot of last year, it was 4.3, 4.4. But my endurance and my LT1 was really strong. I built that a lot. I built that to about 225 watts, which is about 3.5 watts a kilogram. Yeah, nice group. Hopefully I can drop them. No brace. TBA, if the consultant says that's going to be sustainable. Morning, Crosshair. Thank you very much. Well, I think with LT1 I like to train at the absolute maximum zone 2, just where the threshold is from zone 2 and 3. And if you have a good feeling for your maximum endurance power, I think that's a really good zone to train at. I'll come back to that in a minute. I didn't realise that. Thank you, Pierre. Yes, it will be a case of digging deep, but also pacing well. Oh, I forgot to start my bolt. That was a bit remiss. Glad to hear that, Craig. Yeah, I think I've got a little bit of a cold as well. My nose keeps running. Right, I just need to ease off a little bit. Really watching the heart rate here. And trying to go for a nice circular pedalling stroke. Get the maximum power for the effort. Yeah, 260, 270 is definitely proper hard for me. I've got no top end, Nick. Feeling okay though. Long way to go. I want to make it feel very doable for the first few bends. Otherwise, you're fighting a losing battle the whole way. Hey Zahir, hey today sir. Hoping for 4 watts a kilogram here. That's about 248 watts. Yeah, I'm sorry I'm not going to be talking a great deal. As you can see, this is not trivial for me. It's been pretty structured throughout, Godspeed. Thank you very much, sir. Basically, of late, 2 or 3 times 15 minutes once a week, and then a couple of hill climb efforts, typically 20 to 25 minutes, all indoors on Zwift. And then a lot of high cadence work at around my lactate threshold 1, and loads of rest, 2 full days of rest minimum. Economics will come later. Hey Ross, the economics will come. Morning Phil, how's it going? Done a big ride today? I won't be able to talk very shortly. Hey Marco, good to see you, sir. How was Milan? Did you enjoy it? You look like you had some beautiful pictures on Strava. Right, I now need to focus a lot on the cadence and the pedaling technique. Absolutely, go Marco, go. Keep me company, help me feel positive. Much appreciated. Come Philip, it's starting to hurt now. Well, not hurt, bite. Thank you, Katie. Feels like I got it under control. Beautiful around the lakes, isn't it? Land of milk and honey, Phil. Hey, Noel. Thank you very much, sir. Appreciate that, mate. Morning, Christian. Kudos to Hungary. Whew. That's right, fan. Trying to really stay planted. Cheers for commenting, appreciate that. Keep an eye on me. That's the idea, Craig. Try and stay seated. Control the pedal stroke and the breathing. But I need to be a bit more controlled about the power in each segment. He sure does, doesn't he? Cheers are here. I found I'm kind of settling about 85 since the accident. It used to be 90 for me too. Not yet, Samoose. Still can't move it to the front of the house here, to the back of the house here. Too heavy. Trying to, the moment you lose the composure, it's always downhill from there. So trying to keep it to here. I'm sure I'll have a meltdown at some point. I've got it at 75 to replicate the 32 on the rear, which I might even have a 34 in the rear for the heart rate. Yep, I've never had a 34. 30 on the Villia, 32 on the Colnago. You're too right, Paul. I need to stay away from the high 160s in terms of the heart rate. Well, I do like a bit of comfort, Nick. Oh, crikey. Titanium Ben. How are you, Ben Pitt? Already had it. Yeah, I really appreciate the escort, Marco. Oh dear. Hope you're having a good time with the family, Ben. Morning, Atakan. Greetings to Turkey. How are you? Thank you, Paul. Going for 4 watts a kilogram, Atakan. 248 watts, average. The Atakan, his glass is 3/4 full. Amazing marathon runner and cyclist too. Cheers for the heads up on that, Paul. Is that in real life, Ben? "42 minutes." Well, 42:30, but a long time ago. In real life, 55. No, 53. Oh, 55, can't remember which. Same segment as Zwift. In real life. Nice, Ben. Hopefully one day, Marco. Really starting to bite now. Control is everything at this stage. Yeah, I'm going to try and avoid that, Paul. That's what we're looking for. Elevated but stable heart rate, Atakan. Then we know we're at our anaerobic threshold. Body is just about able to clear lactate. Breathing is controlled. Can focus on the pedaling technique. Morning, Andrew. Thank you very much for joining, sir. Yeah, mine will soon rocket in the final 10 minutes or so. Ross. Just 7.5 to go, very funny, Marco. It certainly is. It's parked at a safe storage place. My dad had to drive it this summer because I'm not able to drive it. He quite enjoyed that. Yeah, hoping to close people in to here. Tell me if I'm wobbling, found. I need to stay planted. Cheers, Dean. That's very nice of you to say so, sir. Thank you. Very funny, Paul. Here we go. Full respect to this individual. A. Olsen, maximum respect. Cheers, Marco. Cheers, Rob. Feeling okay at the moment. Right on the limit, but okay. I'm sure not, Chris. Cheers, Steve. Appreciate you saying that. Gonna get back my composure. He sure was. Thank you very much, Chris. No, this is my max, Rob. Yeah, just trying to pace it to my pace. So here. Cheers, Marco. This is really helpful. Thank you, Lee. I reckon about 4.1. Pierre. Hello. Pierre. Right. Gotta get my composure back. That's right, Paul. I always take comfort from this too. The snow. Agree, Ben. In real life it's like that too. You think I've got a 20-minute effort till the end? Well, I do. That'd be nice, wouldn't it, Phil? Marcus helped me close the gap here in his draft. Morning, Jonathan. Aiming for 4 watts a kilogram up this. Cheers, Anakan. Thank you, Nick. Yeah, too early for the big numbers, I agree, Nick. Cheers, Paul. Morning, Mark. How are you? Let's raise it here. Hoping so, Pierre. Cheers, Matt. Not full strength, Mark, but getting there. Thank you, Janet. Nearly there. Yeah, it's cool, Janet. I'm happy with it. Cheers, Sean. That's still a great time, Matt. In reality, in the real world. No, I won't get 260. But on the SCMers I might. But not on the watt bike atom. Cheers, Ross. Thank you, Purple Cow. Morning, Ian. Cheers, Malcolm. Thank you ever so much, Marco. Really appreciate the pacing. So, including the lead in, that was 4 watts a kilogram, so massively happy with that. Oh, let's stop the... So you can see for the climb itself, up Alpe Du Zwift, we've only just stopped it, so it'd be about 261 watts through the Favera Aciomas. I'm not quite sure what the time was. Yeah, well, Marco very kindly joined. Let's have a quick look at so this is definitely the best power I've done in a hell of a long time, and for sure the exoskeleton coming off has been an instant uplift, because it really does raise your body temperature when you're riding, and so the heart rate is a lot higher. Whereas there you could see, in terms of the heart rate, let's go to the critical power, the timeline. In terms of the heart rate, what I was looking to do was ride at a level where it was very elevated but stable, and you can see really after the initial climb when we hit the Alp, it kind of stabilised at sort of 160 watts or so to 160, back down in a sort of 163, so 160 to 165 watts until the sort of end, and then it climbed like a phoenix. And so definitely I did about probably 35 minutes of the climb right on my anaerobic threshold, my FTP, because what you're looking for when you're on your FTP or anaerobic threshold is controlled breathing, an elevated but stable heart rate, and you can control that for probably anywhere from 30 to 50 minutes depending on your fitness. Thereafter you're obviously going to get drift in the heart rate, and as I got deeper into the effort you can see the heart rate climbing quite a lot, and obviously I was putting the power down more in the final K&a-half or so. But I'm really happy with that, because that's a very consistent pacing, and I think there's only one segment, a very short one, where I dropped below the 4 watts a kilogram on the Wattbike Pro. So looking at the critical power, I'm not quite so, it'd be about a 50-minute out, won't it? There we go. Yeah, about... Oh dear, I can't move it. Yeah, about... Oh, no, not that. Yeah, it's about 254 watts up the Alp, which is just over 4 watts a kilogram. So really happy with that. You're about 261 on the Favera Aciomas. And that will give me good data for the Haute Route Davos in terms of... Oh... an arbitrary increase in my anaerobic threshold, but probably that isn't too far off. So yeah, if that's fair enough from Zwift, that probably isn't too far off at all. Oh yes, it says. I want to go back though, so I can ride down now. I'm actually going to ride down the Alp. But thank you all very much for the support during the climb. Obviously I can't talk a great deal during a climb, but it means a massive amount, all of the support from everybody. Was it 47.50? Was it? Oh, nice one, Marco. Thank you for the heads up on that. So yeah, about 254, 255 watts. Massively happy with that. And really, versus last week, nearly all of the benefit has come as a result of the exoskeleton coming off and the body temperature being lower. Also, it's cooler outside, we've had a noticeable drop in temperature. But, yeah, 260 I was well happy with for 20 minutes, Ben. Thank you, Katie. Cheers, Ian. I appreciate that. How was your race this morning? Did you go... I saw you might be doing Ventu, or there was Mick was doing the park perimeter. I was going to join one of those, but then I thought, well, actually, I need something that's specific for the Haute route. Yeah, I mean, 3 weeks ago I was also on the Wattbike Pro, and while the Wattbike Pro Power is about the same as the Wattbike Atom, the reason I love that Wattbike Pro is because it's got air resistance, and as Fan will often tell you, where there's air resistance, it's somehow harder to maintain that nice pedaling technique, and so I attribute a lot of the control I have over the pedaling technique and maximising the power for the energy to the Wattbike Pro, because you really have to focus on even power distribution and a nice circular pedaling stroke with a pullback at the bottom. And I'm also trying to focus on keeping the knee out over the toe to maximise the leverage. Park perimeter, yeah, that's a proper hard route, that. Thank you very much, Malcolm. Well, sub an hour first time is incredible. I mean, keep in mind, I've been Zwifting now since about summer of 2018. And I've got, as we were touching on at the very beginning, there's the muscle memory, the mitochondria. They don't disappear in the muscle, they help produce energy aerobically. All the capillarization, i.e. all the little veins, the very smallest veins that deliver blood and therefore oxygen to the muscle, they grow and develop as you build fitness. So all of that is still with me. It's just a question of rebooting it, but also watching the back, not bending the back. So definitely, if you do sub an hour on your first climb, that's amazing, and then just build from there. Noza here, I've actually bought a Wahoo kicker bike, which is going to complement the Atom 2. We're getting rid of the Atom 1. So I'll show you my pain cave. Here we go. So Jane has her Concept 2 rower. Jane's currently using the Atom 1 because she insists on the big saddle. I'm using the Atom 2 here. My favourite, that is my favourite, the Wattbike Pro. I adore that Wattbike Pro, but a kicker is going to come in place of that, and then one day I'll be able to ride the rollers, but that ain't going to be for quite some time because the risk of coming off on the rollers is just too high at the moment. So yeah, the rollers, I do love the rollers, and I'm hoping in the the spring, to get back on the rollers, but it will take quite some persuading with Jane to get me back on the rollers. And you can see also I've got the window open, nice outdoor scene going on, so it's all quite civilised this morning. Mr. Wheelie over the banner. I haven't done it on RGT yet. I understand Wahoo acquired RGT, so I'm actually gonna, and you can do like training sessions on like Alpe d'Huez or the Stelvio, this kind of thing, and I'm actually gonna have a little experiment on that because I'm gonna be doing a lot more indoor riding, because while I'm looking forward to the Haute route, that is in very quiet roads and there's support and all this kind of stuff. I think it's going to take a long time for my confidence to come back, so I'm going to be doing a lot more indoors. Oh, the webcam's come out, is it? Oh dear. 1 second. Ooh. 1 second. Oh dear. Not very good. Sorry about this, not quite sure what video capture device. USB camera. Sorry about this. What's it? Oh, crikey. There we go. I had to activate it and then deactivate it. I've never had that before. 1 second. I'm not sure what I'm doing now. There we go. Oh, crikey. Sorry, I've got to be careful here. Well, there you are. My slick streaming skills have returned with a vengeance. Right, so... Where's the... I can't see the comments now. So, in case you didn't see it, yeah, you've missed a technical mishap. Right, so, I'm going to, just in case it didn't work, I'm going to actually have the OBS up for this. Right, so there is the Atom Generation 1, that's what Jane writes. And also that's her Concept 2 rower. I use the Generation 2 Atom, and you can see nice view outside, but my favourite is definitely the Wattbike Pro. I love that Wattbike Pro. The air resistance definitely builds the pedalling technique, and it's a little bit harder. I always feel fitter when I've gone on that, but it's the same with the rollers. I adore the rollers. The rollers really build good fitness because you have to stay in that kind of fixed position. Very good for the balance and the stability and the pedalling technique. But also the first few times when you come back to the rollers, if you've been proficient on them before, it really hurts the abductors, the inner thigh, which is evidence of the muscle not being worked as much without riding them. So it's good for kind of muscular development as well. Anyway, so let me. In terms of Stephen Seller, yeah, definitely I know of his work. I'm not an expert on it because I know he's polarised and you do a lot, 80% of your work in kind of a low intensity and the other 20% of the high intensity. And I definitely think that must be a very good training method. But I quite like sweet spot, and I quite like riding, my endurance at right between zone 2 and zone 3, my own LT1, which is obviously a very personal thing because I have limited time to train. Typically it's about 5 to 6 hours a week. Ahead of this halt route I'll probably do 7 or 8, but I don't enjoy so much the really low intensity stuff, and so I just prefer to take full rest days. But everybody speaks very highly of him. Yeah, when you're doing structured when you're doing structured training, it doesn't always matter. But actually, what I want to do with this kicker bike is practice the structured training on some of the big climbs, in and out the saddle, this kind of thing, with the bike changing gradients. I'm kind of really intrigued to see what that's like. Hey Ian, how's it going? You alright? 300 workouts in that Wahoo training program. Yeah, because I think they acquired Sufferfest, Zahir. So Wahoo acquired both RGT and Sufferfest, and they've kind of merged the two things together to create this RGT training, where you've got the Sufferfest training programs in the RGT environment. And so it's a lot of very serious cyclists, they really like Sufferfest in terms of the training and the benefit, and so I guess but it was always a bit kind of, you just rode your intervals, and there was a video going on, but not very interactive. The time, I think it was about 48 minutes, John. So super happy with that. I managed to 4 watts a kilogram, probably about 4.1 in the end. And I really wasn't expecting probably to get the full 4 watts this time around on the Wattbike add-in, because it does read about 10 watts lower or so than the Favero Siomas, although today it read only about 5 watts lower. So I was showing about, I stopped that a bit late, probably about 261 watts on that for the climb. So it's probably only about 5 or 6 watts down the Watt Bike Adam Generation 2. What I am finding is there is quite a big difference between power meters. I always thought if a power meter says it was plus or minus 1% accuracy, they'd all be the same. But my Aciomas, I've got 2 pairs of Aciomas, they're both very consistent in the power they read, but they always read 10 watts more than the Watt Bike Adam Generation 2, or 5 to 10 watts more than the Watt Bike Adam Generation 2, and 10 watts more than the Watt Bike Pro. But they also read about 5 watts less than the Watt Bike Adam Generation 1. So go figure, all these different, and they're correctly calibrated, I promise. Yeah, I think the most important thing with the training, Andrew, I agree, is like you've got to do what's enjoyable as well. And if you're on a limited time budget, I often think it's better. I kind of look at my working week and I think, well, on those 2 days, that's just going to be a hell of a lot to fit in. So they will be full rest days. Let the body properly recharge and all that kind of stuff. Don't worry about getting in that long endurance ride. And then do like 2, maximum 3 days of intervals a week. And the other 2 days will be like at my LT1. And I find that builds fitness quite adequately. And doesn't put undue pressure on regarding the work environment. I think 80-20 would be just a bit too much. Sorry, I didn't see your... What did you say, Keith? Plus or minus? Yeah, you're absolutely right, Keith. Yeah, I mean, the best... You gotta enjoy it. I mean, and if you enjoy the really hard intervals like the 40-20s, I do enjoy those. I'm going to go back to those at some point, get them in, but you have to allow a lot more recovery as well. And the other thing while I've been recovering with the back injury is I really just wanted to focus on getting nice pedaling technique and staying planted and kind of building into each effort. And it's easier to do that on 15 to 20 minute efforts than it is on a 5-minute effort. You kind of try and go too hard. Yeah, I think rest days. I think rest days are really important, especially as we get older. I don't know what your age is, J-Bus, but definitely for me, I need 2 full rest days a week. You know, I can do, a 6-day week, maybe for a couple of weeks, but then I end up burning out quite quickly. You're up the out. Well, good luck with that, Chris. Enjoy it, sir. But I think full rest days are good because even when you're doing the low intensity stuff, if you're doing like an hour and a half or so, that still does add up. It still is depleting glycogen. It still is placing a pressure of kinds on the body. And often when I do my own recovery rides, still with the 2 full rest days, I might go to the gym and do some upper body work or something like that. In the past, I'm doing light conditioning work at the moment and light conditioning squats. And then I'll just go and do 30 to 40 minutes on the Watt Bike Pro. And I'll do that at kind of my lactate threshold 1. And I'll do it at very high cadence, like 100 RPM. And I think that's pretty good for just flushing the blood through the legs and nutrients through the legs and just keeping the body turning over. So I quite like a shorter kind of ride at that sort of endurance pace, but really focused on high cadence, nice pedaling technique, and trying to get something out of it more than just turning the legs. No, I don't use a coach at the moment, Zahir. I used to have Coach Lavarak, but I'm kind of enjoying experimenting with what works for me personally. And I think what I've really enjoyed, and if you haven't checked out, I know I'm not suggesting people should go to a laboratory, but what I've really enjoyed is working with Adam Isherwood at Oxford University, because he's helped me understand what should be happening from a physiological perspective at each different part of the power curve. So right up to your lactate threshold 1, i.e. your maximum endurance pace, the lactate in the legs is low and controlled, and it stays low and controlled. it rises by about 1 millimole versus the baseline, and it will stay there. The breathing is controlled, very controlled. You're able to talk, and you can sustain that pace with a nice stable heart rate outdoors. It does drift a bit indoors, I find, for like 3-4 hours, no problem at all, probably longer for some. And then when you get above that lactate threshold 1, you're going to start getting gradual drift in the heart rate. You're going to get the breathing gradually becoming a little bit more laboured over time, but you're going to be eating into more carbohydrates from the muscle, and so you're going to have to be upping your consumption of food. Even by the way, for me at lactate threshold 1, I have to eat 140 grams of carbs an hour, and I can't do that on the bike. And then when you get into your anaerobic threshold, the body is only just able to clear the lactate that is accumulating out of the muscle. It can't be all dealt with in the muscle, it's in the blood, but it's being cleared through the liver and turned into energy. And your oxygen and carbon dioxide being inhaled, carbon dioxide being exhaled is just about even. Heart rate is elevated but high and stable. Elevated but stable. Breathing is rapid but controlled. You can still focus on what needs to be done in terms of the pedaling technique. These are the sensations. And then above your anaerobic threshold, and that anaerobic threshold is what FTP is trying to solve for, and it's fine on a population basis, like thousands of people, but in reality, whether it's our lactate threshold 1 or our anaerobic threshold, i.e. our FTP, any percentage of FTP, any FTP itself is just an estimation. We all have very different physiology. So with my physiology, my lactate threshold 1 is high, but my FTP is quite actually close to it. It's only about 30-40 watts different. So I've got a narrow window to work with, and when you look at the power curves that are derived from an FTP test, that doesn't indicate any of that. And so that's why I'm not using a coach. I'm kind of trying to think about what is the body meant to be doing and try and map that across. Now obviously when you get to VO2 max, you're rapidly, and that's really anything above, when you get above your anaerobic threshold, you really start eating into muscle glycogen at a very rapid rate, and the energy stores in your body called W prime, and you've only got a limited amount of W prime that you can burn through before you just conk out. And so the more the intensity above that anaerobic threshold, the quicker you'll conk out, because the quicker you'll run through that W prime. And so again, learning how to measure out an effort above anaerobic threshold is a real skill. Yeah, thank you very much. Oh, the Alpe, it was about 48 minutes, Yvange. Thank you very much, Matthew. I appreciate that. The brace is, it's not officially off, but because I'm stable here on the bike, not twisting the torso or bending the torso, I'm okay for that. I'm waiting to have a second opinion as to whether or not the brace can come off permanently. I saw the consultant on Friday, and it was sort of mixed news on the T8 vertebrae. It's sort of healing okay, but it's still a bit misshapen. Yeah, I think I prefer a higher LT1, Andrew, than to an FTP, simply because I prefer riding the longer rides, up to about 100 kilometers, where that high LT1 enables a good rapid pace that's kind of sustainable, and you can climb nicely and all this kind of stuff, and you can dip above it into sweet spot and get an even better pace. But then you have to drop back down to your LT1 or below in order to let the body recover. Whereas a very high FTP is great for a 20-30 minute effort, but those are less relevant for most recreational cyclists unless you're a TT specialist. So that's just my own personal view on it. Like today at the Porlock hill climb, a high FTP would be perfect, because that is about a 20-minute effort if you're me. Well, if you, it wouldn't be any more, it'd be more than that now. Well, the thing is, no, that's what I was saying about FTPs are here. In an ideal world, based on a very big population of people, if you do a 20-minute effort and take 95% of that, that will calculate the anaerobic threshold, or the FTP, for the population as a whole. And typically, the more trained the athlete and the better the athlete, the closer their actual true anaerobic threshold will be to that FTP, to that 95% of the 20-minute effort. But on an individual basis, it doesn't work, because it's an arbitrary it's not an arbitrary, it's a scientifically calculated 95%, but based on a massive population. And for the individual, some people could be 88 to 90, 92% of that 20-minute effort, and some people could be 98% of it. So then when you set training zones against an FTP, which is kind of inaccurate for a large number of people, those training zones are themselves an arbitrary sort of 75% of FTP or 85% of FTP, etc., to set your zone 1 to 2, 2 to 3, 3 to 4, 4 to 5, etc. And so then when you start saying, okay, well, I now need to ride my lactate threshold 1, which should be where between zone 2 and zone 3, you could end up riding a pace that's too slow. It isn't your maximum pace for endurance, or far too high. And so if you don't have access to the laboratory, I think it is really important to understand what ought to be happening from a physiological perspective to your body. And this is what Adam Isherwood at Oxford has taught me. And so I know that if you see in my lactate threshold 1 video, I gauged what my lactate threshold 1 was before I went to the lab. And I did that over a series of weeks, really, training for the Mount T-Day climb, obviously all with the exoskeleton, where I kind of built up to 2-hour rides indoors to figure out what kind of pace could I sustain indoors. And then with T-Day, I sustained the 200 watts for just under the 3 hours, 2 hours 40. And so when I went to the lab, I said, well, I knew my breathing was controlled. There was no problem clearing lactate. I was able to talk at that pace up the T-Day. And therefore I estimated to Adam before we did the LT1 test that my lactate threshold 1 was 200 watts. And sure enough, on the lab bike it turned out at 210 to 220, but the lab bike reads 10 watts higher than the Asiomas. And similarly, for the anaerobic threshold, like I'm saying, I'm looking for what is my maximum pace that I can kind of ride at, as I just did there, with the heart rate kind of elevated but stable, so in that 160 to 165 range, breathing controlled. I'm able to kind of think enough about, okay, I now need to dial back in the pedaling technique, or I need to regain my composure, or I need to just fettle off the power by 5 watts. Because when you're riding at that threshold, you should be able to sustain 30 to 50 minutes, or 30 to 45 minutes at that pace, because the body is just able to clear the lactate, the breathing is controlled, the heart rate is elevated and controlled, and thereafter it drifts up. And so it's a physiological sensation that I'm kind of training to understand. Well, yeah, I mean I do. So here I structure it using my lactate threshold 1. I do all my endurance rides, short ones, high cadence, at around about 190 to 200 watts on that watt bike, and 200 watts on the Asiomas. but I just tend to keep them shorter. And I try, if I'm doing like a 2 or a 3 times 15 minutes, I'll ride it at just above my anaerobic threshold for each of the 15-minute efforts, and I'll try and have the recoveries right on the lactate threshold 1, because to me, more usable fitness is riding a hard effort but then recovering at a reasonable workload, not like a sort of very low zone 1, because that doesn't happen so much in real life. So definitely, I don't really even look at I talk about FTP simply because it's one of the big KPIs, key performance indicators, that is measured in cycling. But in reality, I don't really think about it anymore. I think about how am I building that lactate threshold 1, and like on that Alp, I'm thinking, can I sustain a threshold style ride for 40 to 50 minutes? Yeah, I mean, I think I'm blessed on the endurance side of life in terms of the lactate and the ability to clear it and tolerate it at the higher threshold, but definitely, I don't know, I'm kind of enjoying learning about, well, for me, cycling has always been a bit of a journey, and part of the journey is learning from subject matter experts. And when you get the privilege of working with a subject matter expert, someone like Adam Isherwood at Oxford University, who's really setting out what all of these FTP, endurance, sweet spot, what we're actually trying to achieve with each of these, but he's also telling us about how many carbs am I consuming as an individual, burning off as an individual at each of those levels of intensity. It really starts to open the mind as to, okay, so go to the Mallorca 312. Through Adam, I knew that my lactate threshold 1 was then 225 watts. So I didn't go ever above 225 watts on any of the climbs. I couldn't on the first one because it was properly chocolate block, but on all the rest of the climbs, I stuck at 210 to 225. And on the flats, I was in that 200, probably 190 to 210 range. But also, I knew that I personally, even though I do a lot of fasted training, I burn loads and loads of carbs, loads of them, like 120 to 140 grams an hour. So I was stuffing my face with these little Swiss rolls and Coca-Cola at the stops, and I had plenty of carbs in my bottles and bars and things like that, because I knew that I'm quite carbohydrate dominant in terms of how I ride. And so all of this I actually learned from the lab. Nothing to do with a Zwift FTP test or a Zwift ramp test and the intensities that maybe I can ride at or not. All to do with physiology and carbohydrate management. Yeah, I mean, Adam is, he is a proper revelation to me. I mean, Paul Hambler introduced me to the Oxford University testing with his friend Dave Dearlove. But Dave doesn't have time to do the private testing because he's just become a dad. And so Adam and I have built up a really good relationship. Adam does a lot for GCN as well in terms of the testing. We're talking about someone who I definitely pay attention to, and I've ridden better and longer as a result. Well, thank you for saying that. I appreciate you finding really interesting crosshair. Yeah, the carbs. Literally, I was flabbergasted at 120 to 140 grams of carbs at 180 watts. I mean, that's just insane, isn't it? You try eating 100 grams of carbs on the bike per hour. It's hard. I mean, I have them in the bottle. I never have a bottle when I'm out on a long ride without 60 to 80 grams of carbs in it. It's just a no-brainer. And I'll have extra weight because I want them carbs. I just accept it as a, because we don't have, obviously, a team car to deliver us carbohydrates. Yeah, I mean, Baz, I definitely agree. One of the things I used to love doing in London, and I will go back to this, is going up to the Olympic Velo Circuit, which is an outdoor road circuit, undulating, with turns. And I'd always evaluate an hour of power there. I think actually Adam says no one really can sustain their anaerobic threshold, proper anaerobic threshold for an hour. It's more like 35 to 45 minutes. But definitely if I really want to evaluate my true FTP, my anaerobic threshold, indoors on a trainer like just now, or outdoors on a very quiet road, or better still, a circuit. I used to do similar up at the Regent's Park in a circle. It's you really learn how to fettle the power, and you learn to kind of just sit right on your limit. You learn where your limit is. And a lot of this is about understanding your body. And that's kind of what I'm getting at. I think FTP is great. It gets you in the ballpark and then in the zones against FTP. They're great. They get you in the ballpark. They get you thinking about different ways to ride strategically. But the real game changer is learning your own body, and actually is it doing what it's meant to be doing at those thresholds. It makes a massive, massive difference. And I promise you, I'm not just, I've got nothing, I'm not selling anything. I have no training programs or anything like that, but I'm promising you, if you learn your body and really start paying heed to the sensations in the muscles, the ability to clear lactate, the breathing, the heart rate, the ability to talk, the ability to think about your pedaling technique, the ability to think about the road outside and the environment around you. These are all signs that you're able to ride to the physiological target. Obviously when you're going absolute full gas above your anaerobic threshold, it gets harder to measure out the effort in such a controlled way. And I think for a lot of people, me included, a 20-minute FTP test overstates my true physiological anaerobic threshold, my FTP. So if I go and try and ride to it, I get into the hurt locker very quickly within 5 or 10 minutes, and then you're kind of suffering and trying to gut it out. And that isn't really what we're trying to understand for and solve for. Yeah, sugar. Dylan Ryder, he has always talked about the sugar, and definitely a fast digesting carbohydrate is essential. I used to have, before a Zwift race, a bowl of cornflakes a la Dylan Ryder with the almond milk on and loads and loads of sugar. Definitely gives you wings, definitely. And before a big ride, I will have oats because I want a slower digesting carbohydrate source for a long ride, but with quite a lot of dried fruit and honey on. I think that's an absolute joy. I like the dates out on the ride, obviously without the stones in them, stoneless dates, gives you an instant pick me up. Honey, well, honey or syrup, maple syrup, either of those things. I like nitroglycerine on your breakfast. They will give you legs so long as you eat enough carbs during the ride. He did, yeah, did he have cornflakes, did he? Fair play. relate to. I bet he had a ton of sugar on the top as well. I bet he had a ton of sugar. Yeah, I mean, this is it. I mean, so here, on a lot of the live streams I used to do, because I was trying to come out the gate and hold my FTP, I mean, I was kind of renowned for suffering. And I can suffer, I can sit at my threshold. But too often, on the Zwift racing, I was trying to hold powers that were sort of set as a result of an FTP that was a fair FTP, 95% of my max power over 20 minutes, but was beyond me physiologically. And so then you just start suffering, your form goes to hell, you're in and out the saddle, cadence is not consistent. Yeah, baby porridge. Ha! Nice one, Ian. I like that. I mean, I was eating a lot of baby food after the crash because the jaw was so broken, teeth were gone, and so I got addicted to baby food, yogurts and apple. My mum still does me loads of stewed apple and really soft cake. Weetabix and Nesquik and sugar, nice. Liking all the refinements here to the pre-ride. It's just simple, isn't it? It's brilliant, isn't it? Cycling is just lovely in terms of go and fill your boots with stuff that other people would never eat. They go, oh, that'll make you ill, that's not good for you, but it's just carbohydrates. Agreed, Ian. Agreed. Your FTP, if you do an FTP test of 1 times 20 minutes and take 95% of it, you should be able to complete 2 times 20 minutes with 10 minutes of recovery in between, or 15 minutes of recovery. You know, you don't have to be a prescriptive 10, but it should be a repeatable power in the same session. 100% agree. No, I can't. Even though my teeth have been fixed, Ben, it takes a long time for all the inflammation and swelling to go. Plus, also the teeth are a bit weak still in part. You know, it's quite a job to fix them properly, and so I'm kind of, you know, very wary. I have to kind of cut apples up into small bits and eat them, this kind of stuff. I am still a bit like a baby. I do look younger. I'm feeling my age marker. I managed just before, here's my age, right? So just before my appointment with the consultant on Friday, I had a late night with work. I had to, well, it's nice. We were entertaining very low key because we, as a bank, we cancelled a number of things that we had planned for last week because of the Queen's funeral. But we, some of our clients had flown in from Germany, and so they were still here, and obviously it's only right that we entertain them. So we entertained them, and I didn't get back home here until about 12 o'clock, and the lights were off, and I tried to keep the lights off, and I managed to slip down the final 2 stairs down to our kitchen and turn my ankle. And I thought, luckily the back was alright, I think. I was in the exoskeleton. But I thought, how have you got to this stage where everything you do is prone to like injury? Baby porridge, like eating a cloud. Yeah, I think for a lot of people, I think the ramp test overestimates the anaerobic threshold or the FTP. You got way too much VO2 max in that final minute or 2 of the ramp, or 3-4 minutes of the ramp, maybe 5. I mean, I'd get through at my peak the 400 watt segment, which would give me an FTP of like 300 and something watts. You speak to Adam, 75% of that, of whatever your final minute is just madness. And indeed, even the ramps that Adam sets, you know, 3-minute ramps, the power increasing 25 watts every 3 minutes, is good for testing your VO2 max. But your VO2 max will be different if you use 1-minute ramps, in terms of 1 minute increases in power. And that's why when we're testing for lactate threshold 1 or we're dialing in on the aerobic threshold, you kind of estimate from the 3 minute ramp test what your lactate threshold 1 will be and your anaerobic threshold will be. But then to really dial it in, you have the lactates taken on a ramp test in and around those estimates. But every 10 minutes the power is ramping by less. Hey Harry, how's it going? The god of speed himself, all the way from the USA, the beautiful USA. I typically, Zahir, whenever I go to Adam, and you'll see it in my most recent, not my most recent, the video before last, where we did an estimate of my anaerobic threshold. I always do a 20-minute Zwift FTP test with a 5-minute VO2 max before. And the reason I do that is to provide the context as to the test most of us would be doing, because most of us do not have access to a lab. I'm doing it really because A, I'm interested, but B, it's, I think, helpful content on YouTube. But I also am interested in, is it overstating? Is the FTP test overstating or understating what Adam is determining physiologically? So I'm going to go back to the lab with Adam in a few weeks to do a new anaerobic threshold test, and I'll do a 20-minute test to compare. I agree, it can't be reduced, and I think that's part of the joy of fitness. It is learning about the body. It's learning about how we respond individually to different intensities, to different durations of exercise. It's and also, as I've been recovering obviously from the injury, I've learned about the muscle memory and the mitochondria and the capillarization. It's just been fascinating. I know I shouldn't say fascinating in the context of being, but I've actually really enjoyed having to rebuild from scratch. It's made me think more about, one, safety in the future, but two, what did I really enjoy about cycling and training, and what was the most important things that I learned about fitness, and actually when I enjoyed the really long rides. Because I was doing too much on the YouTube to just like thrash myself up a climb or thrash myself on a Zwift race, and I kind of, you feel a sense of accomplishment after it, but it isn't really, you don't learn enough about how to ride properly outdoors from doing one climb or one Zwift race. Yeah, I was just saying, I was just telling people, Harry, I fell down the stairs. You already knew that because we'd exchanged comments the other night. Yeah, the ankle is fine on the bike. I just have to be very careful when I'm walking around. Well, yeah, I mean, Ian, and you've benefited from quality training with the progression you found this year in the crit racing and the outdoor racing. You've added a bit of body weight because you found that you respond better to that. And again, that's a kind of, I am prone to try and keep the body weight really low. That is my, from the bodybuilding and trying to maintain the muscle mass and the definition and all this kind of stuff, it is a kind of an eating, not disorder, wouldn't go so far as to say that, but I'm always aware. Once you've done a bodybuilding show, you never ever forget about the calorific content of food and all this kind of stuff. Then you add it to cycling and going uphill, and yeah, you can end up quite focused on your weight. And I do eat plenty of carbs and all that kind of thing, but I think, like you, probably my weight at 62 isn't my ideal weight, and so I need to increase it. I agree, Harry. A lot of people say when you twist something, and I didn't twist it so that I couldn't walk on it, I could hobble on it straight away. But I'm very much of the view, for any kind of injury, the moment it is safe to sort of do low intensity exercise and get moving, it's for the best. And a lot of the nurses and doctors, both in the recent crash, after the recent crash, but also after the appendix operation, said you've got to get active, because the longer you sit around and do nothing, the more the muscle atrophies and the harder it is to get going again, and actually it's better for the recovery process to get going again. And so straight away on the Friday morning before I saw the consultant, I hobbled downstairs to the Watt Bike Pro and got clipped in, which was a job. Clipping out was even harder. I actually had to take the shoe off to get out because I couldn't twist the foot. But I just did some high cadence work, and that got again the blood flowing through the ankle. I was able actually to get the train and then walk to the consultant. Well, I say walk, hobble. Morning, Tim. How's beautiful America? You and Harry from the wonderful continent. I'm actually heading to America for a holiday soon, going to Palm Springs and then Northern California. Yeah, I mean, Dorian Yates, very interesting bodybuilder. In terms of bodybuilding training, a lot of bodybuilders use volume, high volume of, like 10, 12 reps with big weights, but 10 or 12 reps and say 3 to 5 sets. Dorian Yates, he was an advocate of HIIT, very high intensity training, where you would do one set for each body part. So if he's doing legs, he might do one set for the quads, one set for the hamstrings, and one set for the calves. But that one set would be hell. It would be super heavy weight because he was very strong, obviously drug assisted. But it'd be a giant drop set, and he'd have somebody with him that he'd do, his 10 or 6 to 10 reps, really heavy, and then they would drop the weight off and he'd go again, and they'd drop the weight a bit more and he'd go again, they'd drop the weight a bit more and he'd go again without rest, to just annihilate the muscle, and then done. Then he'd move on to the next muscle group, like the hamstring. And he obviously was Mr. Olympia, which is the best bodybuilder in the world, I think like 3 or 4 times. But he did say that it was better than just keeping piling on set after set after set. Just better to do it once and well, and then recover well. Yeah, I adore Palm Springs, Tim. Beautiful in amongst the mountains, really uplifting part of the world. Yeah, I'm hoping to climb the climb that goes up to the cable cars in Palm Springs, and then we go to Napa, and there's some nice little climbs there on good roads. Did you really? You shook hands with him in Marbella, sorry. Ah, yes. Yeah, Dorian is he got, because he did a very high intensity training, it did injure him quite badly in the end, and he had to, he doesn't train the same anymore. But definitely, if you look at all the bodybuilders in recent years who are unfortunately dying in their droves, including a recent Mr. Olympia, Sean Roden, Cedric McMillan, there must be about 15 of them that I used to follow. The trouble with the steroids is it makes everything grow. So if you have a cancer, it will get worse. It enlarges the heart. It can make you more prone to a heart attack. And a lot of these are dying of heart failure. But also they take really harsh cutting drugs to help them burn off the body fat, which are really bad for you. And then the diuretics, so they're at a low body fat before they compete, but to get the water out of the system, they take the diuretics. And a lot of them are on huge doses of all of these things, plus growth hormone, insulin, this kind of stuff. And they're bulking up to like 250, 300 pounds, and then cutting back down to like 200 to 230 pounds. And just walking around with such bulk in the off season puts a big strain on the heart too. So yeah. Oh, good luck in the gravel event, Tim. How many KMs are you doing? I really appreciate you tuning in. Yeah, the bodybuilding, I'm glad I was old when I was doing it. I was like 37 to 40. And I always did the natural shows, the British Natural Bodybuilding Foundation. This kind of thing, where they were WADA tested. The top 3, I never made the top 3 in the lightweight division that I used to compete in. But too many people, youngsters these days, are looking for shortcuts in terms of steroids and stuff. So my son, he does a lot of weightlifting, and he's very good at it. But the one thing I say to him is, do not ever go down that route. 60 miles, okay, that's going to be hard on the gravel. Yeah, I hope you carved up well. Very best of luck with it, Tim. It feels nice to recover at this night, low intensity, spin the legs out a bit. Tomorrow will be a nice easy day. We should watch the funeral. God bless the Queen. And in terms of, I agree, there's no shortcuts to much, Ian. Whether it's putting on muscle, getting fit at cycling, or indeed getting good at your job. Yeah, there is a bank holiday to obviously allow everybody to watch the ceremony of the Queen's funeral, pay their respects. Very little is going to be open over here, David. So yeah, we'll definitely be paying our respects. And then the country will get back to normal, because we need to get back to normal. It's appropriate that we've mourned the loss of the Queen, and I'm very touched about the global response as well. But there's a lot of problems over here, just as there is globally, whether it's how we deal with the support for the Ukraine war, whether it's how we deal with the cost of living crisis. We're still waiting to hear how Liz Truss is going to pay for the big subsidies she's giving to the energy companies, because she's not prepared to tax them. I do not understand why, if energy companies, the ones producing oil and gas and green energy, are not taxed on a windfall basis higher than they are. And these are supernormal profits, and by increasing borrowing to pay basically subsidies to the companies selling energy, that just means a much bigger debt that we and other generations are going to have to pay off. It's just wrong. And she says, well, they won't invest as much. Well, fine. Then don't increase the taxes on them, but say to them, if you increase your dividends, as you have been, we're going to tax the hell out of you. You either invest those supernormal profits in much more green energy, and you prove that you are, and part of the proof of that is not paying the dividends. Well, you £230 and you're benching 400, my word. Wowee, Harry. That's a huge bench, even against the body weight. But 230 is a lot. No, to carry all that weight and muscle, it's too much for the heart. It's like the cyclists who did EPO, this kind of thing. They would raise their hematocrit, the oxygen carrying blood capacity, to 50 and sometimes above that before the passport came in. But that's too much for the heart. It leads to a bigger risk of a heart attack, so they had to wake themselves up in the night, this kind of thing. Yeah, indeed, intervals is good, and that's why I'm going to get back to tempo with Thresher. Well, thank you very much for all your help, Marco. I'm going to have to go shortly as well, but really appreciate everybody tuning in. It's massively uplifting, motivating. I really enjoy the effort, but I also much more enjoy just the chat, exchanging views on stuff, and hopefully, we all learn a bit from each other. For me, that's the best thing about the cycling community. It is a sharing community. But anyway, time to carb up, get off the bike, find out how moving Isabella into Bristol is going with Jane, and I will look forward to seeing you all in probably a couple of weeks, because I've got the Hort route next week. Interest rate over the next 12 months, I reckon it must keep going up to 5-6%. That's just my personal guess. But remember, I'm a banker, so anything I predict turns out to be completely different. But whoever you are, well, I know many of you. For the many of you who I know, whoever you are, and for the many I don't know, whoever you are, and whatever you do, please remember to live, thrive, and stay super healthy. Look after yourselves, and look forward to speaking to you all soon. Take care.